Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is Kazariya. Well, I am from Rehan School Koran campus and I am the student of foundation class. तो आज हम कर रहे हैं sesame task, so let's get started.
I'm Maya. What do you go by? Maya. Just Maya.
Okay, so now tell me that what does the word sky mean?
The sky is basically everything you see when you look up, the atmosphere, the space beyond it, and that gorgeous blue color we get during the day because of how sunlight hits the air. Do you usually find yourself staring at the clouds, or are you more of a stargazing person?
Okay, so now tell me that where does the word sky originate from?
Let me check on that. It actually comes from the Old Norse word sku, which meant cloud or even the abode of God. It's believed it traces back even further to a Proto-Indo-European word meaning to cover. Pretty wild that it started as a way to describe a cloud and ended up describing everything above us.
Okay, so now tell me that
I actually don't have a camera.
what was the original
Tell you
meaning?
what,
What was the original meaning of the Old Norse word sky?
I'm not quite sure I follow. Are you asking about the architecture of Old Norse buildings or something else entirely?
Okay, so now tell me that why does the sky appear blue during the day?
It's all about how sunlight interacts with the atmosphere. Sunlight is made up of all the colors of the rainbow, but blue light travels in shorter, smaller waves. When it hits the gas molecules in our air, it gets scattered in every direction, which is why the whole sky looks blue to us. It's basically a huge game of light scattering. Does that make sense, or do you want the more scientific name for it?
Okay, so now tell me that why does the sky appear blue during the day?
I think we're looping a bit. We just talked about how the blue light from the sun gets scattered by the gas molecules in the air. Does that feel a bit too simple, or are you looking for something more specific?
Okay, so now tell me that what is Rayleigh scattering?
That's the actual scientific name for what I was just describing. It's the phenomenon where light is scattered by particles that are much smaller than the wavelength of the light itself. Since blue light has a shorter wavelength, it gets scattered more easily than the colors like red or yellow, which is why we see blue everywhere. I'm not sure I follow. Are you asking if that's what the term means, or was that directed at me?
Okay, so now tell me that how does the sky change at sunrise and sunset?
That's when the light has a much longer journey to take. Since the sun is lower on the horizon, the light has to travel through way more of the atmosphere to reach you. By the time it gets there, the blue light has been scattered away completely, leaving behind the longer wavelengths, the reds, oranges, and pinks. It's basically the sky's way of putting on a show. Do you have a favorite time of day to be outside?
Okay, so now tell me that why have humans been fascinated by the sky throughout history?
I think it's because the sky is the ultimate blank canvas. For thousands of years, it was the only clock and calendar people had. They used the stars to navigate oceans and plant crops, so it wasn't just curiosity, it was survival. But there's also that feeling of looking up. Actually, I have to jump in here because our session is about to hit the 5-minute limit. We'll get cut off soon, but you can always call me back whenever you want to pick this back up. Bye for now.
Okay, so now tell me that how did ancient civilization use the sky for navigation?
Starting with the stars. It's honestly wild how they did it without GPS. They basically used the sky as a giant permanent map. Most of them track the North Star, Polaris to find north, and then use the constellations to judge their latitude based on how high the stars were above the horizon. Polynesian sailors were especially impressive. They didn't just use stars, but read the waves and the flight of birds too. Do you think you'd have any luck finding your way home if you only had the stars to look at?
Okay, so now tell me that what role does the sky play in different religions and cultures?
That is a huge topic, but it's usually the place where the divine lives. In many ancient cultures, the sky was seen as a literal home for gods. Think of Mount Olympus or the celestial realms in Vedic traditions. For some, it was a canvas for storytelling, where constellations weren't just navigation points, but records of myths and moral lessons. Then you have the Egyptian view, where the sky was seen as a goddess nut arching over the earth. Do you think we've lost some of that wonder now that we know the science behind it? I get that. There's something about knowing exactly why a star twinkles that takes away the magic of just wondering what it is. I mean, though I'd argue the science actually makes it cooler, like knowing that the light we're seeing is from thousands of years ago is its own kind of magic. Do you think the stars feel more like a map to you or more like a mystery?
Okay, so now tell me that how do artists and poets use the sky as a symbol?
The sky is basically the ultimate blank canvas for emotion. Poets usually lean into it to represent the infinite or the unattainable, like when they write about reaching for the stars to talk about ambition or longing. Then you have artists using the colors of a sunset or a storm to mirror a character's internal mood without having to say it out loud. It's a shorthand for everything from absolute peace to total chaos. Does that make sense? Or do you want some specific examples of poems or paintings where they do this? Anytime. What's on your mind next? Since we've been chatting about the sky, air, and the earth.
Okay, so
Wonder if
now
you've had
tell
any more thoughts on how they all, the official road? Not quite following you there. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so now tell me that what object can be seen in the sky during the day?
The obvious one is the sun, of course, but you've also got the moon, which is out way more often than people think. And if the conditions are just right, you can actually spot Venus or even Jupiter during the day. Have you ever caught the moon hanging out in the sky during the afternoon?
Okay, so now tell me that
Yeah, it's
what object can be seen in the sky at night?
the moon is the star of the show, obviously. And then you have the stars, planets like Mars or Saturn, and occasionally a satellite or the International Space Station streaking across. Some people even get lucky and see a meteor shower or the northern lights. Do you have a favorite constellation you look for when you're out at night?
Okay, so now tell me that how has the study of the
I'm all ears.
how has the study of the sky contributed to the scientific discoveries?
It's basically the foundation of under how we understand our place in the universe. Early astronomy led us to realize the Earth isn't the center of everything, which was a massive shift in human thinking. Then you've got things like the discovery of gravity, because people were tracking how planets moved, or using the light from stars to figure out what everything in space is actually made of. It's essentially the ultimate laboratory because we can't actually go to the stars to touch them. So we've had to get really creative with how we observe them. Do you think it's more exciting to discover something completely new in space or to finally solve a mystery about something we've seen for centuries?
Okay, so now tell me that what is the difference between the sky and outer space?
Think of the sky as the blanket that wraps around the earth. It's the atmosphere, all the air and weather that we actually breathe and interact with. Outer space, on the other hand, is the void beyond that blanket. It's where the atmosphere ends and the vacuum begins, and that's where all the planets and stars live. One is essentially our home, and the other is the infinite expanse outside the front door. Does that distinction make sense to you?
Okay, so now tell me that how has the technology changed our understanding of the sky?
It's completely transformed it. We went from just staring up with our own eyes to using telescopes like Hubble and James Webb that can literally see back in time to the beginning of the universe. Then you've got satellites that give us a real-time look at our own weather and climate from above, which is a huge shift from just guessing based on the clouds. It's basically turned the sky from a mystery we could only wonder about into something we can actually measure and map. Do you think having all this data makes the sky feel less magical to you, or does it make it more interesting?
Okay, so now tell me that why do clouds forms in the sky?
It all starts with water vapor. Basically, when warm air rises, it carries moisture up with it. As that air gets higher and colder, the vapor turns back into tiny liquid water droplets or ice crystals that cling to little bits of dust or smoke in the air. When enough of those gather together, you get a cloud. It's essentially just a massive collection of floating water. Do you like the look of big, fluffy cumulus clouds, or are you more into those thin, wispy ones?
Okay, so now tell me that
Cumulus clouds are the
how does weather affect the appearance
fluff.
of the sky?
Weather basically dictates the whole mood of the sky. Uh, on a clear day, you've got that deep blue because of how sunlight scatters, but as soon as a storm rolls in, you get those heavy, dark grays and purples as the clouds get thick enough to block out the sun. Then you have things like fog, which is basically just a cloud that decided to hang out on the ground. It's a constant shift in colors and textures based on what's happening with the air and moisture. Do you prefer a bright, sunny sky or the kind of dramatic, moody look you get right before a storm? You're really leaning to yeah today. I'm starting to wonder if you're just enjoying the view of the sky we've been painting with words. What's the next thing you're curious about?
Okay, so now tell me that what emotions or ideas does the sky inspire in people?
The sky is basically a giant mirror for how we feel. For a lot of people, a clear blue sky feels like hope, freedom, or a fresh start. But then you have those endless gray, overcast days that can feel heavy, lonely, or even a bit cozy, depending on who you are. And don't even get me started on a starry night that usually hits people with a mix of awe and a humbling realization of how small we actually are in the grand scheme of things. Do you find that your own mood shifts based on what's happening up there?
Okay, so now tell me that how has the sky influenced exploration and aviation?
It's practically the reason we left the ground. For centuries, humans just looked up and wanted what the birds had. That curiosity led to everything from early kites and hot air balloons to the Wright brothers finally cracking the code on powered flight. It didn't just change how we travel, it changed how we see the world. Suddenly, borders felt less permanent, and the whole planet felt smaller. Now we've used the sky as a literal stepping stone to get into space. Do you think the dream of flying was more about the speed of getting somewhere or just the thrill of seeing the world from above? You're very welcome. We've covered a lot of ground. In a lot of sky. Is there anything else you're wondering about, or are you feeling satisfied with the tour for now?
Okay, so now tell me that what do you think humanity might discover beyond the sky in the future?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think we're probably going to find out that we're not the only ones staring up at the sky, wondering the same thing. whether it's microbial life on a like frozen moon or a civilization like way more advanced than us. I feel like the universe is too vast for us to be the only experiment. I'm also curious if we'll find a way to actually travel those distances, maybe some kind of fold in space that makes those millions of light years feel like a short trip. Does the idea of finding other life out there make you feel excited, or is it a bit intimidating?
Okay, so now tell me that if the sky were a different color, how did that affect human culture and art?
A different colored sky would have completely shifted how we see everything. If it were, say, purple or green, our entire palette of peaceful or sad colors would be different. Our art would probably reflect that, and we might have totally different metaphors for things like feeling blue. But hey, you mentioned you're tired. Do you want to take a break and pick this up later?
Okay, so now tell me that
Yeah, and if you want to,
why do you think the sky is often associated with freedom and possibility?
because it's the only thing that doesn't have a boundary. Unlike everything else on the ground, the sky just goes on forever in every direction. There's no wall, no fence, no endpoint. I think that visually translates to the feeling that anything is possible because there's literally no limit to how far you can look. Plus, there's that innate human desire to transcend the weight of gravity, so looking up feels like an escape from the constraints of daily life. Do you feel that way when you look up, or does the vastness of it feel more overwhelming to you?
Okay, so now tell me that in what ways does looking at the sky connect people across different cultures?
It's the one thing we all share, regardless of where you live. No matter the language or the border, everyone sees the same moon and the same stars. It creates this universal baseline for human experience. Like how people in completely different parts of the world all looked at the same constellations to navigate or tell their stories. It's basically the original global community. Do you think that shared connection makes the world feel a bit smaller? It's kind
Okay,
of comforting, right? Knowing that someone on the other side of the planet is looking at that same moon. What else is on your mind?
so now tell me that do you think the sky still
Fair enough.
do you think the sky still inspires wonder in the age of modern technology? Why or why not?
I actually think it does, maybe even more than before, because we spend so much time staring at screens and walls now. A window to the sky feels like a real luxury. It's like a necessary reset button for our brains to remember that there's a world outside the digital one. Plus, architects are leaning into that more. Think of those massive glass ceilings or open air designs that basically make the sky part of the room. Do you think we've become too disconnected from the outdoors, or do you find it easy to still find those moments of wonder?
Okay, so now tell me that how has the meaning of the word sky changed over time?
It's funny because for a long time, it wasn't even a separate thing from the weather or the heavens. Originally, sky was used more to describe the clouds and the atmosphere, whereas heaven was the place where the gods lived. Over time, the two drifted apart, and sky became our word for the physical space above us, while heaven stayed more spiritual. It's basically a shift from seeing the sky as a mystical realm to seeing it as a part of nature. Do you think that change makes the world feel more grounded or less magical?
Okay, so now tell me that why is the sky important for life on Earth?
It's essentially our life support system. Without the atmosphere, we wouldn't have oxygen to breathe or the ozone layer to block those harmful UV rays from the sun. It also acts like a giant thermal blanket, keeping us from freezing at night and overheating during the day. Basically, we're living inside a protective bubble that makes everything else possible. Do you think people take that for granted, or are you usually mindful of the air you're breathing? That's the honest truth for most of us. It's one of those things that's so constant we just stop noticing it until something goes wrong. Do you think we only appreciate things once they're missing? Or are there things you actually make a point to be mindful of?
Okay, so now tell me that
I'm listening.
what causes different colors in the sky during sunrise and sunset?
It's all about the distance the light has to travel. When the sun is low on the horizon, the light has to pass through much more of the atmosphere to reach you. The blue light waves are short and get scattered away, leaving the longer red and orange waves to make it to your eyes. It's basically the atmosphere acting like a giant filter. Do you have a favorite time of day to catch a sunset, or are you more of a sunrise person?
So now tell me, how do scientists study the sky?
They use a whole toolkit of high-tech gear. It starts with ground-based telescopes and satellites that can see light we can't even perceive, like infrared or X-rays. Then they've got weather balloons and probes that actually go up there to take measurements of the air and temperature. It's basically a mix of extreme patience and some of the most precise machinery humans have ever built. Do you think it's more impressive that we can map things millions of light years away, or that we're still figuring out the nuances of our own atmosphere?
Okay, so now tell me that what can we learn about the earth by observing the sky?
A ton, actually. The sky is basically like a giant mirror for what's happening on the ground. By looking at the clouds and the way the air moves, we can predict the weather and understand climate patterns that dictate where we can grow food and where cities can actually survive. Plus, the composition of the atmosphere tells us a lot about our planet's health, like how much carbon we're producing or how the ozone layer is doing. It's essentially the Earth's medical chart if you think about it. Do you think we're doing a good job of listening to what the sky is telling us?
Okay, so now tell me that how did early humans explain the sky before human science?
They mostly leaned into mythology and storytelling. They saw the sky as a reflection of the divine, often imagining it as a solid dome or a giant animal arching over the world. For some, the stars weren't just balls of gas, but holes in the fabric of the heavens, or the eyes of ancestors watching over them. It was a way to make the infinite feel a bit more personal and less terrifying. Do you think that kind of storytelling is more satisfying than the scientific explanation?
Okay, so now tell me that what are some myths or legends related to the sky?
Oh, there are so many. You've got the Greeks with their tales of Zeus throwing lightning bolts from the peak of Mount Olympus, and the Norse who believed the sky was actually a giant skull of a primordial being. Then there's the Chinese legend of the archer who tried to shoot down 9 of the 10 suns to save the world from overheating. It's like every single culture had their own way of turning the sky into a living, breathing storybook. Which one of those sounds the wildest to you?
Okay, so now tell me that how does the sky influence weather patterns?
It's basically the engine for all the weather we experience. The sky, specifically the atmosphere, is where all the action happens. It's a constant battle of temperature and pressure. Warm air rises, cool air sinks, and that movement creates wind. When that air hits moisture, you get everything from a light drizzle to a massive hurricane. It's essentially one giant global balancing act. Do you like the feeling of a storm rolling in, or do you prefer it when things stay predictable?
So why do stars appear only at night?
They're actually there all the time. It's just that the sun is so incredibly bright that it completely washes them out during the day. It's kind of like trying to see a tiny flashlight in a stadium when the floodlights are on full blast. Once the sun dips below the horizon, the lights go out and the stars finally get their moment to shine. Do you think it's a bit of a tragedy that the sun hides all that beauty from us for half the day?
Okay, I hope you liked our conversation. We will meet soon inshallah. Allah Hafiz. Bye bye.